Today we're going to start Nun Chesamid Beis. Shalach Rab Chanina Mishmei Rab Yechanan. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn. It's because of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. It should be a panacea. It begins like this. This is 58b. Rav Chanina sent in the name of Rab Yechanan. Ha'isam maimer b'yavamte v'yesh layach. Afilu hu kayen v'hi kayenes pasal min ha'truma. Okay, we've been going through this this discussion regarding a bas kayen. Before she gets married, she's able to eat truma because she's a bas kayen. Her father eats, the whole household eats truma. Then when she gets married to a kayen, she's able to eat truma because her husband eats truma. If she would get married to a Yisrael, so even from the Eirison, she wouldn't be allowed to eat truma. She has to stop immediately. If she would be a Kohenes, or the opposite, if she is a Bas Yisrael, and she's marrying a Kohen, she wouldn't be allowed to eat truma from the Eirison, or would have to wait till she's married. However, if she's a Bas Kohen, and she's marrying a Kohen, and she's betrothed, Eirison, so either she belongs to her father, she belongs to her husband, she's eating truma. The complication that we've been discussing over the last few days was, let's say she's betrothed to a Kohen that when they get married will invalidate her. And that was the big discussion because he's pasal. So when they get married, she won't be allowed to eat truma. So is she already invalid now because she's not under her father, and her husband would not help the matter. So what's happening here is that I have a Kohenes. She's a Yevama. She's about to do Yibam with her deceased husband's brother, and he's a Kayan. She did Maimer. Money. She did Maimer. What happens with Maimer is that she's supposed to continue with that. Let's say there's two brothers remaining, Shimon and Levi. She does Maimer with one, with Shimon. Now she's supposed to continue and do Yibam with Shimon. But let's say she has relations with Levi. So that's also considered, it's called the Bia Psula, because the Maimer was not a complete Yibam. It's just Maimer is the betrothal of a Yavam and a Yavama. It's rabbinic. So because she's in wait, she's like reserved or in wait for a relations with the Yavam or one of the Yavamim, which is rabbinically invalid to her. So that should invalidate her from eating truma. Now what we're doing here is we're saying that a shemeres Yavam that's waiting for someone that's really invalid to her invalidates her from eating truma. Now, even though it looks like she's set up to marry the right one, but because there's a brother there and he's also a potential Yavam, so she's potentially waiting to marry someone that's rabbinically invalid to her, so it's gonna invalidate her from eating truma. Gemara says, 1 second, Laman, who does this follow? Ilay Reb Meir, if it's following Reb Meir. Now, Reb Meir had a very strict opinion. He said that she becomes, when she's waiting for a Bia Psula, for an invalid, something, relations that would invalidate her, she becomes invalid from eating truma. So, however, that's only midiraisa. That's only if it's a biblical law. Remember, this was in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if it's a Eirison of an almana to a kain gadol, or a grusha v'chalutza to a kain hedyet, those are biblical laws. even though she didn't have the relations yet, it was just a betrothal. She's already invalid and she can't eat truma. So to over here, she's already invalid and she can't eat truma. The problem is that law was only a biblical prohibition. Hey, you're telling me about mimer. Mimer is only a rabbinic law. And you're going to tell me that because of a mimer to Shimon, now she's going to be invalid to Levi, and she's in wait to have relations potentially with Levi or Shimon. So that potential is going to invalidate her. He only said that by a biblical law.
So a normal woman, not a Kohen, married to a Kohen, before anything else has happened, she still has the right to choose.
Yeah, if she has a son.
She has a son.
If she doesn't have a son, then she ends up going back to her father's house.
If she has a son, she's waiting, nothing else has happened, she can still be.
Yeah. So let's take the other opinion. Elul Reb Elazar Reb Shimon. This is an odd choice. I mean, this is obviously not going to work because Reb Elazar Reb Shimon, according to Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon, they held that even if she was betrothed, she's a divorcee, and she's betrothed to a Kohen or a widow betrothed to a Kohen Gadol, she's still eating because she never became invalid yet. You know, her father was a Kohen and her future husband is a Kohen. So she wants to eat the truma. She's allowed to. So if that's the case by a biblical law, so it's for sure going to be like that by a rabbinic law. Okay. The Gemara says, Rav and Amar. Here we have another example of this. Rabbi Chanina sent it in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. This statement that mimer to one brother is going to invalidate her from eating truma because there's another brother there that would be an invalid relations rabbinically. Ravin, in general, is usually more accurate, and the Gemara accepts his opinion more when he's sending things in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, which is what he usually does. So Ravin Amar, when Ravin came, he said, no, mimer is not going to invalidate her. That rabbinic sort of betrothal that a Yavam and a Yevama has. That's going to be fine. It's only rabbinic. That's a very interesting case. Let's say there's two brothers. Well, there were three, Reuven, but Reuven passed away. And now leaves Leah. Leah could either marry Shimon or Levi. The problem with Levi is that Levi has a different mother. Levi's mother was a halala, someone that was disqualified from being a Kohen or Kohenet to marry. So it ended up that, or it could have been a Gerusha as well. Whatever the case is, Levi is a chalal. The child from that union is a chalal. Now, there's potential over here for Leah to either marry Shimon or Levi. But because she's in wait to marry someone that would invalidate her, so she's already can't eat truma now. Right? Whenever she's in a relationship that would invalidate her from eating truma, so she can't eat truma. Even let's say she was just a girl that was betrothed to a Yisrael, she doesn't eat truma. She's in this relationship. She didn't live with him yet, but she's in a relationship with someone that would invalidate her from eating truma. Now, what's the relationship? It's a zika. It's an attachment that she has to Levi. So where's the issue? The issue comes up like this. The machlekes here is if he had given her a divorce. Now we're going to have a machlekes. A get by a Yevama is also a rabbinic law. If the Yavam wants to divorce, be severed from the Yevama, he has to do chalitza. He didn't do chalitza. He did a get. So what happens? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chelas. Rabbi Yochanan says she can still eat. Rish Lakish Amar Einai Chelas. Rish Lakish says she can't. What's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chelas Afilu. Rabbi Meir Damar Einai Chelas Hani Milim Mersa B'Psul Deiraisa V'L Derabbanan Nachla. The get does not invalidate her biblically. The get by a Yevama is only rabbinic. So
relations, I suppose. If there was a mimer.
So mimer and both mimer and get are only rabbinic laws.
Right.
So the relations would create the marriage. So once there's a get, then she's really not supposed to have. She's supposed to get chalitza. There's a discussion here when the Gemara says that there was a get, and where are we holding now? Did he then marry her? Whatever the case is, she's mishtameres to a bia psula. She's in wait for an invalid relations. Rabbinic. So Rabbi Yochanan says, when does Reb Meir say that disqualifies her from eating truma? That's only if it would be in wait of a biblical prohibition. But over here, it's only rabbinic, so she can still eat truma. Rish Lakish Amar Einai Chelas. Rish Lakish says the opposite; she can't eat. And Afilu Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Damri Chelas. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say that if she would have been an actual divorcee, waiting to marry a Kohen, she's still allowed to eat truma. But in this case, she can't. Very odd. Why? Because Hani Mili, when did they say that she would be allowed to eat truma? Because her future husband, the Kohen, can't marry a grusha, and she happens to be a grusha. However, all his other wives, a divorcee, all his other wives are eating happily truma. So this fellow is a feeder of truma. So now that she's entered into that family, I know that if once they consummate the marriage, she's finished. But before they do that, this fellow is a feeder of truma, and she may be from her father's house, also a kehenes, and she can eat truma, and he's a feeder of truma, so she would be allowed to eat. However, in this case, in our case now, we have a fellow that any other wife that he has, that he's divorced, which he's just divorced this wife. The only thing is it was only a rabbinic divorce. But in the case where this man divorces his wife, she cannot eat truma. In this scenario itself, but in the other case, he's betrothed to these women or married to these women, and they're all eating truma nicely. And now we have a case where he's divorced a woman, and we want her to still eat truma. The problem is that all other women that he's divorced are not eating truma. So the Gemara says, 1 second, that's not true. If he's divorced a woman that goes back to her father's house because she doesn't have a child, and she goes back to her father's house, so she eats from her father's house. So the Gemara says, 1 second. If she's going back to her father's house, then that's a different scenario. Because she's going back to her father's house, she's entirely severed from this husband, and she's returned to her father's house. This woman that's been divorced, but avalha agidabeg, this woman that's divorced is still attached to him. So this divorce is worse than a regular divorce. Regular divorce, the woman could go back to her father's house and eat truma. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon are saying that a woman that's rabbinically divorced, a shemeres yavam that's rabbinically divorced, is still attached to her husband, and she can't eat truma. Yeah, it comes out a very strong chumrah, according to this, to Rish Lakish, in the opinion of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon.
If you're divorced, at a get, for you to...
Yeah, with a get, right, or a chalitza. So she would...
Still zika? Oh yeah, I guess there is.
No, if there's chalitza, there's no zika. If there's a get, there's still a zika.
Right.
That's the problem. Okay.
So you said that consummates the marriage.
Yeah.
And then wants to leave her. Is Chalitza not a get?
No,
Is that what you
no.
said?
no. If they got married, if they had relations, the Yavam and the Yavama, he wants to leave her, so he does a get. If he gave a get and he didn't do Yibam, that's what we're dealing with. He gave a get, and he's a Kohen, and she's a Kehenes. Is she allowed to eat Truma? So Machlekes comes out through Birchin or Rish Lakish.
But if they did relations, isn't that the Yibum?
Yeah, if they had relations, that would be the Yibam. The problem is that rabbinically, they're not supposed to have relations at this point. So there's a Bia Psula there. She's in weight of a Bia Psula, a rabbinic prohibited relations. At that point, after a get, the rule is they're supposed to do chalitza. Yeah, that's part of the problem here. Okay. Next Gemara, Nesarmala and Nesgarshu. Very interesting Gemara now.
That one wasn't.
Yeah, as opposed to before. If she gets divorced, so she becomes, what happens is, if she was married to someone that she was forbidden to marry, and then she gets divorced. So it depends on how married she was. Was she betrothed or married? If she was just betrothed and she gets divorced, so she's still permitted well, she's divorced, she can't marry a Kohen. If she's widowed from a marriage that she wasn't supposed to be in, from a betrothal, she can still marry a Kohen. She married someone that she's betrothed to someone that she wasn't supposed to marry.
And
Someone that would invalidate her, but she never actually consummated the marriage.
Right.
So then she is widowed. She can still marry a Kohen. But if she was actually married, the marriage was consummated, then she can't. It's simple. That's why it's like, really, it's too simple.
she's married to somebody that she wasn't supposed to marry.
Right.
She became married. No. That's what you're saying. The situation here must be that she was betrothed to someone who she shouldn't marry.
Right.
Betrothal ended before marriage.
And the betrothal ended before marriage, so she's still permitted. But if the marriage was consummated, then she's prohibited. So take a look at this. Reb Chia bar Yosef mishmuel. Reb Chia bar Yosef asked Shmuel the following question. Kohen gadol shekiddush saktana ubagra tachta. The rule is that a Kohen gadol has to marry a virgin. Now, if she's matured, then she doesn't have the same level of basulam, of virginity, as she had when she was a child. Because as she matures, some of the skin would grow and become smaller. The breaking of it wouldn't be as complete. In other words, it's partially broken. So he's supposed to marry a child. The Kohen Gadol is supposed to marry a Ketana, not a Begeris, not a mature girl, because he has to marry a virgin. So what he did was he betrothed a Ketana. Very nice. Problem is, by the time it came time for the wedding, to consummate the marriage, she was already a Begeris. She's already mature. So is he allowed to continue to marry her? It's halfway. The caterer delayed the wedding. She's already it's already mature. So what's the din? We're on top of the test. And do we say, well, she's not married yet, and here we have a big problem. For her to finish this marriage would be a violation. Do we say no? He married her already. They're married. So what's the problem? Once they're married, he's allowed to live with her. It's not like he's only allowed to have wives that are Ketana. No, he has to marry her when she's a Ketana. And now they're married. So Shmuel responded, I'll give you an answer. When we spoke about prohibited marriages, we said that it would only invalidate her if the marriage was consummated, which means that if the marriage wasn't consummated, then it's nothing. Which in this case, let's take it back to this case, he was betrothed to her, but the marriage wasn't consummated. Then he's not married. it would be a problem in this case. Amalei. So Rav Chia Bar Yosef says to Shmuel, that wasn't my question. My question wasn't how she becomes a chalal. I know how she becomes a chalal.
Were all Kohanim high priests?
No.
Or, yeah,
The high priest is just one.
so it's just Kohen Gadol.
Kohen Gadol, yeah. Yeah, regular Kohen just has to
'Cause
marry
it
someone that
appears
wasn't
that
divorced.
There are some like regulations, I suppose, for just the Kohen Gadol.
Yeah, and this is one of them, that he has to marry a girl that's a virgin.
Okay,
A regular
so other-
Kohen just
other-
can't marry a divorcee, but a widow or someone that's not a virgin for other reasons that he can marry. This is the Kohen Gadol problem. So Reb Chia Bar Yosef says, I know how a woman becomes pasul. That's through relations with she'll become a halala. That wasn't my question. My question was, when it says that he's supposed to marry a virgin, when is the marriage? Kicha de kiddushin b'inan and kicha de nesuin b'inan. Uses the biblical term for marriage is kicha. Yikach. When is the kicha? When is the marriage? Is it at the betrothal or is it at the nesuin? Now from the Gemara, kiddushin ki yikach is the betrothal. So it would be clear that everything is fine. Amalei hanami tanisua. He says that I also have a Mishnah or Brisa. Iris says Salmanav in Ismanalias kan Galiachnes. Yeah, I always was wondering about this. Let's say there was a Kohen that was married to a widow. Then all of a sudden he gets appointed to be the Kohen Gadol.
No.
Apparently there's no problem, because this Gemara has it even a stronger question. Let's say he was betrothed to a widow, and then he's appointed as a Kohen Gadol. It says he's even allowed to finish the marriage. He's allowed to consummate the marriage. He's already a Kohen Gadol. So what does that mean? That the prohibition was just on the betrothal.
But this widow was only engaged.
Yeah, betrothed.
Betrothed, right?
Yeah. So the prohibition is on the betrothal, not on the marriage. Because once they're betrothed, then they're already in. So the same thing over here. He's marrying a Ketana. She's maturing before the Nesuin, before the actual marriage is consummated. So he's betrothed there, and betrothal is enough. You see that clearly from the widow that's married to the Kohen Gadol. Once they're betrothed, he can he even finishes the marriage.
There's a Kohen down my his wife passed away. It's older. He would marry her. She didn't want to give up his own.
He's making a mistake.
He should have won. Same thing. He should have won.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if he didn't learn this, they wouldn't accept him anyway. I don't know the halacha. It could be he's right, but from this Gemara, it's very clear that he could be a Kohen Gadol, even though he has a widow wife.
So the King of England, this guy, he wanted to marry a divorced woman. They said you can't be king, but if you had read this, you could have married her and still stayed king.
Yeah, probably.
So they were following some sort of
Yeah,
biblical law that they felt was.
yeah. Was that like Henry the
No, this is
thing recently?
Queen Elizabeth.
Oh,
That's-
Queen.
Yeah, right before Queen Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
So,
Wallace Simpson.
right, yeah. He said, I'm resigning because,
Because of love.
yes.
Very nice.
Right,
sorry.
So this would have exempted him, right? This would have exempted him.
This would have, yeah, if they would have learned this. Yeah, with Henry VIII. Was that Henry VIII? Was that what it
He
was? Married a few women.
She killed him.
But he had people, examining what the Talmudic law was.
Right.
Had a printing of the Talmud just to be able to see if you could somehow figure this out. Okay,
Did he? I mean, did he follow it? Or?
I thought they started like a new branch of the Christianity or something. right? Didn't
Right,
that like
broke-
affect the Church of England?
He broke with the other guys.
Okay,
So he didn't
So-
divorce anybody, by the way. He killed them all.
uh-huh. So Shani Hassa over there was Yibam. His story was a Yibam story because he was married to his brother's wife. No, his brother was the Duke of something. So Shani Hassam the Ksiv Yikach Isha. Over there, we're talking about he's betrothed. The Kohen Gadol is betrothed to a widow. Now we say that he's allowed to consummate the marriage, even though he was just appointed as the Kohen Gadol. He can, and so the Gemara says, Reb Chia Bar Yosef is telling Shmuel, I have a special verse that allows that. It says Yikach Isha, that he should marry the woman that even if he's already, that which includes the betrothal is considered the marriage. However, what about Bayas? Bayas, he's betrothed and she matured. And he was the Kohen Gadol, he's the Kohen Gadol, and she's matured. Maybe over here it's going to be different. Over there, we have a special pasuk that allows him to consummate the marriage because he was just appointed as the Kohen Gadol. But here, you don't have that pasuk. Umar says, what do you mean? I have the same pasuk. Achanam Ksiv Isha. It says also a woman, and Yikach Isha. What we're learning from Isha is that if anything changes, once the Erisin took place, they can finish the marriage. So here, in that case, what changed? He became the Kohen Gadol. In this case, what changed? She matured. So let them finish the marriage. It says, one second, Achas v'leishtayim. You can only learn one law from this. And we're going to learn the law of him becoming the Kohen Gadol. He can finish the marriage. So Marisa, why are you choosing that law and not the law that we're talking about over here, which the girl matures in between the betrothal and the wedding? Says, well, there's a big difference because ha'eshtani gufa v'ha'le'eshtani gufa. When it comes to the girl, she's now a different girl. She used to be a ketana. Now she's a begeres. So that's different than when he married her and then he becomes a Kohen Gadol. It's still the same woman. Nothing changed in the woman. The woman is the same. She was a widow. The only thing that happened is he became a Kohen Gadol. But in the term Isha, the woman, that would fit better with the woman that didn't change, as opposed to the girl that became a woman, that became a begeres, because over there she changed. So in other words, when it comes to the allowance, what the verse is permitting, it would fit better with the betrothal to the widow, and then he became a Kohen Gadol, than it would with a betrothal to a ketana, and she became a begeres. Okay. We have a new Mishnah now. Kohen Gadol yisal mana. A Kohen Gadol should not marry a widow. Bein almana min erisin, bein almana min nesuin. Doesn't matter how she was a widow. Was she? Well, the husband dies. That's how she's a widow. But it doesn't matter how she was married. If she was betrothed or if she was married, she's still a widow. You can't marry a woman. Can't marry a woman that's mature. He has to marry a girl that's still fully a virgin. Once she's matured, then she's not the full virgin.
This is regardless if she had relations.
Yeah, regardless of if she had relations. Correct. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon machshim begeres. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say no. It's only the relations that makes her not a virgin. A begeres, just if she matures, she's still acceptable. She should not marry someone that is not a virgin because of an accident. Maybe she fell or she was hit, maybe surgery or something, but it wasn't through relations. Nevertheless, she still shouldn't marry. The Kohen Gadol should not marry such a girl. Okay, now we have to go through explaining the logic for the first opinion and the opinion of Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon regarding a girl that's mature. The simple way of understanding this is when we say a virgin, do we mean literally or do we mean figuratively? Is it the abstract or is it the literal? So it goes like this. Tan Rabbanan. First, it starts off with Almana Liyikach. He should not marry a widow. Bein Almana min Ersin, Bein Almana min Nesuin. It doesn't matter how she was married. If she was betrothed or if she was fully married, she's still a widow if the husband died. The Gemara says Pshita. That's obvious. Well, the Gemara says it's not so obvious because Ma'odatei Malayla Almana Almana mi Tamar. By Tamar, who was the wife of Yehuda's sons. So Yehuda tells her, Shvi almana beisavich, go be a widow sit as a widow in your father's house. Now, she was fully married. She wasn't just betrothed. Yeah. So if that's the case, so when do we say the term almana?
Have relations though?
She did have relations. Yeah. The only thing is they didn't do the relations properly, but she had relations. She never conceived, but there was still relations. Well, if that's the case, then maybe almana, the widow for the kohen gadol, is also only if it's a full marriage, and then she becomes a widow. Malahalan minasuaf kan minasuin kamash malan. The Mishnah tells me no, that I don't learn from Tamar. But maybe you do learn from Tamar. It says, well, dumya the gerusha. In other words, how do you know that the Mishnah is correct? It says, well, that's because we'll learn from a grusha, from a divorcee. Ma grusha bein min nesuin bein min ersin, afalmana bein min ersin bein min nesuin. Just like by the divorcee, it doesn't matter how she was married. If she was just betrothed and then divorced, or married and then divorced, so too by the widow, it doesn't matter if she was betrothed and then widowed, or married and then widowed.
Also for a kind of gadol, even if it's just engaged, never got married. It's also for a kind of.
Yeah, that's what we're learning here. Engaged is not the accurate word. It means betrothed, because today engaged is not a kedushin.
And how about a regular kohen?
A regular kohen, but only a divorcee would be the same thing. If she was betrothed and then divorced, it would be very odd. You see, because today we do the ring and then the chuppah immediately. So it would be very odd to have to give a get right after the ring. They're like, oh, you spilt the wine on my gown. That's it. I'm out of here. Okay. The rabbi, instead of doing the rest of the brachas, would write a get. That's the case that we would have to be dealing with nowadays.
And it gets signed before the chuppah? I don't
There
know.
would be no chuppah. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a little.
You've been involved in such cases?
No.
No.
I've been to weddings where they forgot to give the ring, but not that. Yeah, made the chuppah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, it was a mistake,
If they don't have a ring, it's still a valid wedding.
They skipped they said
As long as
they
you
said the
do one of
brachas.
three.
There's steps that you have to follow. You say the brachas, give the ring,
Right.
you read the ksuba, and you say the sheva brachas.
Right.
So they missed the ring part.
That didn't validate the wedding.
No, I didn't think
No,
so.
they gave it after.
Yeah.
They didn't say the brachas again. It's all probably a sukkim by Indian or something.
You say when you give the ring, that's what you say.
Yeah. Yeah, the first bracha is on the kedushin, is on the ring. Okay, but shouldn't marry a girl that's already mature. Why? Because we said she's not really a virgin. Taner Rabbanan, starting in the Brayse of Uisha b'Psulei Yikach. He should marry a woman that's in her virginity. Prat lebegeres shekalo labesula. This excludes a mature girl that her virginity has gone away. Rab Elazar Rab Shimon machshim bebegeres, and Rab Elazar Bar Shimon allowed that. But my kamiflagi, what exactly is the machlokes? Rab Meir and his two friends, Rab Elazar and Rab Shimon. Rab Meir savar besula. If it would have said besula, a virgin, then I would have said, well, she's still a virgin. Afila mixas besulim. She doesn't have all the virginity, but she still has some, so she's still a virgin. Mashma. That's what it implies. However, bisuleha, in her virginity, that means adiika kala besulim. She needs to be a full virgin. Means she needs to still be young, not mature. Bibasula, then we add in the extra base there. In her virginity, that means bikadarka in shleikadarka lai. What Reb Meir is saying is that if she had an atypical relations, that means not in the natural manner, so then
She's still prohibited.
she would be permissible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because Reb Meir is actually taking the word basulim and saying as the actual basulim. Even though she had relations, it's not an abstract term, virgin. It's literal on the actual skin. She has to have the full skin, which means she's still young. And even if she had relations in an atypical manner, so she's still considered a virgin.
No, but there's
However-
a note here that says otherwise.
1 second. However,
Oh.
Rabbi Elazar and Rab Shimon Savri, Rabbi Elazar and Rab Shimon say, Basula, if the pasuk would have said Basula virgin, Basula Shleima Mashma, then it would have told me that she needs to be a complete virgin. Bisuleha, her virginity, Avafila Mixas Basulim, even if she's not a complete Basula, even partially, she's still considered a virgin. Why is it only partial? Because she's matured. And it's still acceptable. What does it mean, bibsuleha? When it says bibsuleha, they learn it totally different. They learn bibsuleha means in an abstract way, that she never had relations. No, what does the virginity have to do with if she had relations in an atypical manner? There's no connection to the virginity. The answer is because they're understanding basulim as not having relations, not the actual skin.
Normal relations.
No,
And-
not having
and-
any
and-
relations. And because she had relations, so she's not a basula.
Right.
The relations were not in a way that would affect the basulim in any way.
Her-
But nevertheless, she's still not accepted to marry a Kohen Gadol.
Wow.
Yeah, today the term a virgin is not. It could be used in both manners. Did he have ever? They use a virgin even for a man. For other things they could use the term. It doesn't have to mean the skin actually. So that would fit that the English word would fit with the way Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon are saying it.
Thing is
And-
these atypical relations, I guess it's really unprovable. Really,
Yeah,
for-
it's unprovable. Yeah, but nevertheless, what is the actual law, right? Okay.
There's a condition that is not what we wanted. Doesn't have relations for like 5 years or something. Or is that
Oh yeah. Oh, really? Uh-huh. So how would that apply to us? That's interesting. If it grew back, definitely according to Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon, she's invalid. According to Reb Meir, it learns that it's literal. There's what to discuss. The halacha is not going to be like that. It's going to be that she's not. But But definitely according to Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon, she's not a basula, and probably according to Reb Meir also not. But you still have to explain why. It's just going to take a little bit more explanation. Right. Right. Okay. Are we holding? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav says, Nivala shalei kedarka psula lekahuna. If there's a girl that had an atypical relations, then she can't marry a Kohen Gadol. When you say kun over here, it means a Kohen Gadol. Okay, who's that following? Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. Massive Rava. Rava has a question on Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav. Says, V'leisi Elisha. If a man rapes a girl, so in those days, he was obligated to marry her and pay the fine. There was a fine that he had to pay. Now, there's a little bit of a problem here because it says, it's only a woman that he would be eligible to marry anyway. However, let's say he raped a widow. Now, how was she a virgin? The answer is because she was a widow from a betrothal. Her fiance passed away. Or she's a divorcee from a betrothal. And now this fellow comes along, this Kohen or Kohen Gadol comes along and rapes her. So really he should be obligated to marry her, but because she is not fit to marry him, 1 second. He's not allowed to marry a widow. So he's not allowed to marry a divorcee. So, okay, so he doesn't marry her. Now, Hechidami, what is this case? Ilema b'kedarka, how did he rape her? If he raped her in a normal manner, very interesting halacha, that the Kohen Gadol has to marry a virgin, but let's say he lived with her.
He's the woman.
He's the culprit before the marriage. And now he wants to marry her. He's not allowed to because she's not a virgin. So if he rapes her, so he's supposed to marry her. So he said, well, it depends. If she was a widow, then he can't marry her. He said, what, in a second, what does that have to do with her being a widow? She's not a virgin. And there's never a possibility of a Kohen Gadol ever marrying someone that he raped. Forget about if she's a widow or a divorcee. Why we have to tell me the story with a widow and a divorcee? It's never applicable anyway. If the relations were in the normal manner, when he raped her, how did he rape her? Elalav shalei. It must be that he raped her in an abnormal way. Okay, that's the case. Mishum almana in mishum be'ula. He says, obviously, she's not considered a be'ula. She's not considered that she's not a virgin. She's still considered a virgin. It's a kasha on Rav, Rav Yehuda Marav. He said that if a woman had atypical relations, she's not a virgin anymore. You see clearly that she is in the anal, not in the natural way. Yeah, it's a kasha. So Hamani Reb Meir, the Gemara says it's not a question. Just change the opinion. It's following the opinion of Reb Meir that actually said that. Reb Meir held that Shaloi Kedarka in an atypical way, she's still considered a virgin. So this Bryce is following Reb Meir.
Wow.
I was following, Rav would say, he's following Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon. But Rav, Damak Rabbi Elazar, Rav is following Rabbi Elazar. Could have said Rabbi Elazar or Reb Shimon. It chose Rabbi Elazar for some reason. Why did it choose Rabbi Elazar? Because we're about to have a problem. And the Gemara likes to look for problems.
With Dina, the story with Dina, if the guy who raped her had been Jewish and been a high priest and all that, that would have been his case.
Yeah.
Rapes her and he wants to marry her.
Right. No, she does have the ability to reject the fellow. She doesn't have to marry him, but he has to be willing to marry her. Marriage in those days meant full support. Yeah, it's like insurance, everything, medical, and it's welfare. It's the whole thing. So she was raped. She gets all of those benefits. Yeah. Now, if she says, "I'm willing to forgo those benefits. I can't stand the guy," which is probably what I can imagine people saying today. So then she doesn't need to follow through. Okay. For Rav Damak Rabbi Elazar. Okay, so it says like this: Rav that said that a woman that had a relations in an atypical manner is prohibited from marrying the Kohen Gadol. That's following the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. Ikra Rabbi Elazar. If it's Rabbi Elazar, my yer mishum beula. Then what's the problem? Because she had relations, Tapikla the Havala Zaina. It's worse than that she's no, not in the case of the rape. Back in the original case, where Rav said, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Nivala Shalek Kedarka, if she has the relations in an atypical manner. So she's Psula Kuhuna. Rav doesn't have to say that it's because she's a Ba'ula. Rav could say it's not only a Kain Gadol, she's a Zaina. Anyone, according to Rav, there's a question like this: who's a Zaina? Zaina is a harlot or a prostitute. What is that halachically? Who goes under that category? Some big machlaikas. One opinion says that anyone that has any relations out of marriage. Well, her. Anyone, if she has a relations and she's not married, she's a Zaina. That's the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. So the other opinions say no, only if she, I'm sorry, even if it's not adultery, this could be just, she wasn't a single girl that has relations, is automatically a Zaina according to this. So, my area Mishum Bu'ula, Tapikla Davilazender, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Pani Abala Pnuya, Shleil Shemisha Sasal Zaina. If a single man and a single woman have relations, not for marriage, she becomes a Zaina. So, what are you telling me that she's prohibited because she's considered not a Basula anymore? She's considered a Ba'ula. She's a Zaina. She's usher anyways to a Kayin. Not only to a Kayin Gadol, she's usher to any Kayin. No, well, a man, what's going on? A man is a Kayin. He doesn't become invalid if he has the relations. It's only a woman that could become invalid for marrying a Kohen. No, and it went to, just for her. I'm sorry? He has relations with the woman. So according to Rabbi Lazar, that woman would be called a Zaina, and she should not marry a Kohen. But according to all other opinions, if he was a man that could have married her, then she's not a Zaina. And she could still marry a Kohen. She can't marry a Kohen Gadol because she had relations already. Kohen Gadol has to marry a virgin, but she can marry a Kohen, according to all other opinions. The problem is a Rav that's going to follow Rabbi Lazar. That where Rabbi Lazar says that an atypical relations turns her into a Ba'ula, why do you have to say that? If he's following Rabbi Lazar also says that that any relations turns her into a Zaina. What we're doing over here is a little bit odd. What we're doing is if you're taking Rabbi Lazar, then you have to take every opinion that Rabbi Lazar ever said. The Gemara could have resolved all of this by saying he's taking Reb Shimon's view. Takes Reb Shimon's view. Reb Shimon doesn't hold of the other Rabbi Lazar. The Gemara could have resolved it easily, but the Gemara is like going through this. It's taking the most complicated part of this maze, to Amar Rav Yosef. We won't have all these details. Amar Rav Yosef. You want to hear what's going on? She had relations with an animal. A woman doesn't become a Zaina if she has relations with an animal. So she has atypical relations with an animal, and she's only a Ba'ula. She's not a Basula. She's not a virgin anymore, according to Rabbi Lazar, but she's not a Zaina. Amalei Abaya says to Rav Yosef is his teacher, if you consider her that she had relations, so Zaina Name Havi, then she's considered a Zaina. What's going on over here? Maybe what you want to say is there's a concept, mukaseitz, this woman that lost her virginity because of an accident, a wound or whatever, she fell. Do you want to tell me that there's a concept of a mukaseitz? She loses her virginity, shalai kedarka, in an atypical manner. So it says, Im Kain, if that's what the issue here is, if you're going to claim that a woman that has relations with an animal, shalai kedarka, atypical manner, is now considered a mukas eitz. So she's not a virgin, but she's not a zaina. Every time she goes to the bathroom and she cleans herself, So
those days.
that's an atypical manner. And if you say that that's considered a mukas eitz, that she's losing her virginity because of that, because of it's like a piece of wood, it would be, those days they used little stones or whatever, it would be a tissue. So then she's a mukas eitz, shalai kedarka. Obviously, that's not considered relations. This is like getting like so out of hand that it's gonna be every single woman you're gonna tell me is already a mukas eitz. She's never a virgin because she went to the bathroom, she cleaned herself. Okay. Elama Rab Zeira bin Manas. Rab Zeira has a solution. Says, you know what we're dealing with? We're dealing with a woman that had relations. She's not married. She's not divorced. She's not a Zaina. And it was Shalei Kedarka. How was that? The answer is Memanis. She was a young girl that was married to a man, but she was married to this man by her brothers, and she's able to reject the marriage. She's called Miyun. So she gets out of a marriage without being divorced. She never had a relations with him. She only had an atypical relations with him. Rav says she can't marry a Kayin Gadol. She's not considered a virgin.
Even though she never had a relation.
Yeah.
And even also if there was,
She had an atypical relation.
what do we say if there was like, if it was accidental?
So then she also can't marry a Kayin Gadol. Yeah. Now, just let me just finish this so we don't have to go over this.
Doesn't make her possible.
That's why I asked.
No, she is puzzled. That's what Rav is saying. She's puzzled to the Kayin Gadol only because of the relations.
But if it wasn't, then just had
No, then she's kosher, yeah. So Amar Absimi Barchia, Nivala Behema Kshir Lakuna, a woman that lives with an animal is still kosher for to marry a Kohen. Tanya Namihachi, Nivala Mishainish. We have a brisa that says this. She has relations with someone that's not a man, an animal. Afabisha Beskila, even though she gets a death penalty for that, but she's Kshir Lakuna, she could still theoretically marry the Kohen. I don't know how she's gonna. Yeah, until the court decides. Kelser Ravdimi Amar Ravdimi came. He said, "My Sabrivachas Betel She Machbedes Abayas." It was a girl in the city of Hetelu that she was sweeping the house. Riva Kelef Kufri and some wild dog came in. It was a dog that was used for a hunter's dog, and it raped her from behind. Rebbe said that she can still marry a Kayan. Amar Shmuel Ula Kayan Gadol. Shmuel says Rebbe allowed her to even marry a Kayan Gadol. The Gemara says Bimei Rebbe Kayan Gadol Miha. There was a Kayan Gadol in the days of Rebbe. There was no Beis Hamikdash. It's already 100 years after the Beis Hamikdash. Ella Ru'uya La Kayan Gadol. What it means is that she was still fit to marry a Kayan Gadol because an animal doesn't affect her virginity. Yeah. Amalei, let me finish this. Amalei Rava mi Parsika, it's supposed to be. Ravashi, Minam, Dam Rabban names Nus Behema. Where do we see that there's no nus for an animal? The Ksiv, because the pasuk says, Leisavi Asnan Zaina Mechir Kelev. A sacrifice is not allowed to be what was used as wages for a prostitute, or an animal that was used as an exchange payment for a dog. Utanan, and we have a Mishnah that says, Esnan Kelev, payment for a dog, umechir zaina, and what's used to exchange to buy a prostitute as a slave, mutarim, that's mutar. Because it says both of those, shnayim v'layarba, only 2 cases, but not 4 cases. So we see that if someone actually paid for znus for a dog, that wouldn't be invalid because it's no znus. Okay, let's leave it by the Tanur Rabbana. Okay.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos.